Alright, so we are back at it with some more sentences and fragments. Let's get started. So the Globe Theatre was a London theatre associated with William Shakespeare, comma. It was built in 1599 by Shakespeare's playing company, the Lord Chamberlain's Men. So I know you can't really see it, but that is a comma. I thought at first it was a period, but it is a comma, which makes this a comma splice. So both of these are full sentences. They don't need a comma between them. In fact, they need to be full separate sentences. The ACT loves comma splices. Let's see how to fix it though. So A, no change. We know it's not that one because there is an error. Shakespeare, comma, this was. That's just a longer comma splice. Shakespeare, period, it was. That one could be correct because it makes it two separate sentences. Let's look at D though. Shakespeare, period, and it was. So this makes it two sentences, but it starts the second one with and that doesn't make a lot of sense. So let's go with C. So although the actual dimensions of the globe are unknown, period, evidence suggests that it was a 3-story open-air amphitheater, comma, which could hold up to 3,000 spectators. So this is another one they like to throw at you because there are multiple errors in the same one, in the same question. So let's look at it. Although the actual dimensions of the globe are unknown, that is an introductory clause. You can tell because it starts with although. That's kind of our signal that we're introducing something. So that needs a comma behind it. So we have unknown, comma, unknown, semicolon. I know right off the bat I can eliminate J because there's no way it can be correct. So, comma, evidence suggests that it was a 3-story, comma, open-air amphitheater. Looking good so far. Period, which. That second sentence cannot start with which. It cannot stand alone, so it cannot be G either. But let's look at H. So, unknown, comma, evidence suggests that it was a 3-story, comma, open-air amphitheater that could hold up to 3,000 spectators. So, that is a restrictive clause. And as a restrictive clause, it never needs commas because it's telling you exactly who is included. So it is an amphitheater that could hold up to 3,000 spectators. So let's look at this very last one. For a long time, scholars thought that the theater was round, period. Now, however, they believe that it was actually a 20-sided polygon. So those are both two completely standalone sentences. They don't need to be combined. But let's see if they try to combine them and make it, I don't know, flow a little bit better. So just off the bat, it doesn't look like they're doing that at all. They're just combining them, shoving them together. So round, comma, now, comma, that's just a comma splice. We can eliminate B. Round, now, comma, that's just a run-on. Round, comma, now, another comma splice. This one doesn't need to be changed at all. So let's look at these three. So there are many ways to apply color to blown glass, comma. One of them involves rolling molten glass in powdered color or larger pieces of colored glass called frit. This one, I will be honest, threw me off a little bit because I wasn't reading very carefully. And also because they didn't underline everything that they wanted underlined. So there are many ways to apply color to blown glass. That could be a sentence on its own. One of them involves rolling molten glass in powdered color or larger pieces of colored glass called frit. That could also stand on its own, but none of these, or the only one that does make it two separate sentences, changes the verb. So it can't be that one. This one just makes them one of which involves, and making it one of which would be introducing a subordinate clause. So we can't do that as a separate sentence. So at first I thought one of which was the same, but it's not. So there are many ways to apply color to blown glass, one of which involves rolling molten glass. So it's got to be C. That's the only one that maintains the integrity of the sentence. So let's look at number 2 just because it is a super fun one because it's the least acceptable alternative. So we're looking for one that's super wrong. So complex patterns with great detail, can be created through the use of colored rods, which can be arranged in a pattern on a flat surface and then picked up by rolling a bubble of molten glass over them. So we already know that that's correct. We're looking for the least acceptable alternative. So use of colored rods, that can be arranged. That's correct. We just determined that that does not need a comma, so that could work. So it's not the answer to our question. So use of colored rods, period, they can be arranged in a flat surface and then picked up. That does work. It's clunky, but it works. So it cannot be the answer to the least acceptable alternative. So colored rods, these rods can be same thing. It's clunky, but it works. So complex patterns with great detail can be created through the use of colored rods, they can be arranged on a flat surface, in a pattern on a flat surface. So this creates a comma splice, so it must be the least acceptable one. Always make sure that you're paying attention. If it says least or which one does not go, just make sure that you're actually answering the question being asked. One of the most exacting and complicated color techniques known as reticello, which involves creating 2 bubbles from cane, each twisting in a different direction. So this one, the sentence just doesn't have a verb. It wants us to think that known is the verb, but it's not. Because one of the most exacting and complicated color techniques, knowing as reticello, doesn't make sense. One of the most exacting and complicated color techniques being known as reticello, that doesn't make sense. One of the most exacting and complicated color techniques is known as reticello. So as you can see, we just got to make sure that we're keeping in line with the paragraph and that we're actually answering the question being asked, and that we're maybe slowing down a little bit and really reading those closely, because they almost got me too.